Hey everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun, host of the Victoria Real Estate Show with my good friend
Hi, I'm her good friend.
Andrew Plank. You're out of focus.
It goes in and out of, it should follow me. Yeah, hi everybody. It's Andrew Plank with Roy LePage. Good thing we have no viewers yet. Who knows?
How was your week?
It was a good week. Lots of different stuff. I mean, such beautiful weather we've had lately, and some good times with clients, and then good times with just personal life. So yeah, it's been great. What have you
I have
got
a
to report?
feeling open houses were quiet on the weekend.
Talked to some colleagues and they were like, no, had nobody through. One colleague did 2 open houses, had nothing. One had an open house, had nothing. So I still don't feel like open houses are a great plan. And, as you know, whether you have listings or not, you can always choose to call a colleague and say, hey, do you want to do an open house at this house or whatever you want. It's not really feeling like it's worthwhile at this point.
Also, what you can do is say viewing by appointment and have people make the appointment to see you, even if they're working with another realtor, and they can disclose who the realtor is, and you can say, okay, I'm only going to be there if you make an appointment between 2 and 4 on Saturday. Make yourself available. But
so you're saying it's not an open house so much as a office hours at that place if someone makes an appointment. Yeah, and that's a good idea.
I did that during COVID. It worked pretty well.
Yeah, and the other side of that is, we do a lot of work from home these days. We don't tend to go to the office as much. And if you have a listing where there is a good place you can set up just to work, this is the opposite of what I'm talking about. But you can, if you're planning to be working anyway, just why not set up the open house sign out front and do your thing. So
true.
That's for those other agents who are watching the show who might be new to real estate or thinking about things. It's a good way to do it. Okay, so let's go
stats. Over the stats, and then we're going to talk about insurance because we're transitioning from unconditional times to conditional times, I believe. And so I just wanted to explain insurance and discuss with you how you cope with it. So let's just go directly.
Regardless of whether you're making offers that are conditional or unconditional, you should, understand how insurance applies here with real estate and what, how it relates. Okay, so stats. I'll start with the first one here. We've been starting to do.
Just want to say, for some reason, I couldn't find the 20th, so I've got the 13th.
Okay, right. So I was going to say we've been starting to do the week before stats, as well as the current stats, just so we can do a bit of a look back. The stats that do get published every week have the year before as well, but we're doing also the week before. In this case, 2 weeks before. So far we're at Monday, June 27th, 2022, and we've had 522 unconditional sales, as opposed to in the year 2021, the whole month we had 942 unconditional sales. So we're way low on sales versus last year. Yeah. And then, June 13th at 234, we were kind of on par, double that. We sped up a little bit actually in terms of sales, I guess, if you look at 2 weeks time. But
yeah. New listings were almost on par to last year at 1,191 compared to 1,208. Mm-hmm. And halfway through the month, we were also on par. And then total active listings were up. Woo!
Yay!
At 2,000. Yay! So there's some choice. I actually have a listing right now that we priced sharply, and we had agents showing on the weekend, and they were like, "Oh, I showed nine listings."
Right.
So there's no urgency there.
Yeah, and that's
all right.
It's an interesting thing is when there's no inventory, there's a lot of urgency on the part of buyers to get in and buy something. When there's a lot of inventory and there's selection, and you can actually choose from a great home, people aren't in such a hurry, which I still find very fascinating.
What's interesting though is that people, so this is a 6-year-old home that I have listed, and people are comparing it to new construction. And, like it has some scuff marks.
Right. Right. I had a discussion with clients the other day about, values of homes, and they were saying, like, oh, I was a little. They were talking about their past realtor and how they were a little upset that the realtor hadn't fought harder when they recommended a price, much lower than the listing price because the place needed a lot of work. And I said, look, if you list if an agent lists a home and it clearly needs a new roof, it's probably taken into account. And the place is dirty and messy and so forth because it's tenanted and nobody's cleaning it. The seller has no control over that. That's probably taken into account. You can't go in and make an offer. I mean, you can, but it's probably not going to go far and say, because this has got all these problems that I have to pay for, I want the price off. It's probably already been accounted for in the listing price.
Well, interestingly, because we weren't, like, there were scuff marks. People were really trying to discount the price, and we're like, okay, we just repainted it, dealt with it, no worries.
Yeah,
comments.
I've seen that too. There you go. Yeah, just repaint.
Oops, sorry. Shit.
But
oops,
excuse me.
Don't say stuff like that. Okay.
So. Okay.
So anyway, so there we are. So that's the that's the stats. Okay, let's talk about the insurance. And the reason why this came up, I went through a number of properties, either where I have been the listing agent or I've helped some clients buy, and we were looking at what the deductibles are. And the deductibles are interesting because they show you where there are, I guess, flaws in the building as a whole. So this particular building's downtown. It was a listing that I had, and when working with a previous buyer, we had looked and saw that the deductible had increased to $100,000 for water damage. So when we went in, being aware of this, went in and looked at the property and saw that there was poly B piping in this condo, and the condo, I guess, association hasn't brought it up as something that needs repair because it's not considered to be, I guess, a latent defect or a defect at all. But as a result of water damage in the building, there's $100,000 deductible. So you have to get insurance for your insurance.
Right. So let's take a few steps back. We're talking insurance today. We're going to talk about insurance in strata properties versus also single family homes. Strata corporations are legislated. They need to have insurance in place, and the strata corporation should be taking care of that, whether it's a duplex or what have you. And when there's a claim, usually there's a deductible. And what Jane's saying here is that these deductibles can range. You can see when you look at this, these deductibles are ranging from $500 to $100,000, and sometimes on some policies you see even more. And so you might look at just the summary of it. You might just look at an insurance policy and say, okay, we're covered for the building. It's really important to know that you've got insurance coverage for all these various types of problems, and what is the deductible, because you might actually be held responsible for that deductible by the strata corporation.
You may have two very similar condos in similar area, priced at the same price, and their insurance may be very different. So you really need to look at what is at risk here if something happens. And it could be your condo that has a leak, or it could be the condo above you that has a leak because the water is just going to go right down. Mm-hmm. And where this came to light was actually, it was in a condo where the hot water tank had expired, in which case the insurance would not cover it. So you really have to be careful.
Right. Or maybe the insurance covers it, but there's bylaws and some stratas that say, look, if you're in an infraction of the bylaws, for example, if the bylaws say you've got to replace your hot water tank every 8 years, maybe the hot water tank's even good for 10, or what's it called, warranted for 10. But if it says you've got to replace it every 8 years and 9 years later there's a a leak, then the strata could hold you responsible for paying that deductible. You want to really look at your strata bylaws and your insurance policy together.
So interestingly as well, I had some clients offer on a townhouse, which we got an accepted offer, and the hot water tank had expired, and the seller would not replace it because he's a technician and he maintains stuff. Anyway, and I'm like, okay, well, I just hope that there's no problem between now and completion. But we'll be replacing that. Anyway, so the buyer just has to factor it into their cost. So this particular condo has $100,000 deductible for the water damage. And then looking at this particular condo, the water damage deductible is $2,500.
I'm seeing sewer backup. Water. Oh, yeah. No, you're right. It's $2,500 for water damage. Big difference. Huge difference. And the insurance companies are very concerned about the tower kind of condo buildings where there's, 15 stories and there's a leak on the 13th floor, because that's not lucky. And it goes down and down and down, and it damages, 10 floors below it because it's a catastrophic leak. That's a lot of repair required.
So in this case, this is a townhouse complex and they're side by side. So any damage would be within the unit anyway. So that would be covered probably by your own policy. Also, I wanted to just say that the strata has to insure every year. And there was a townhouse complex at the corner of 6 Mile. And 1 year, this is just before I was about to sell. The year before, they realized that if they want to repair the fence, that the repair for the fence was the same cost as the earthquake insurance. So they decided for 1 year not to have earthquake insurance, and they repaired the fence.
Interesting. So that's risk management there. And they're saying, okay, if there's an earthquake, we're going to have catastrophic problems, but we're going to take the risk. Now this is another interesting point too, though. I mentioned that the Strata Property Act requires you to have insurance for the strata, but it doesn't necessarily require all of these additionals. It's really just fire insurance, the basic perils. So once you've got these additional insurances, those are optional. And it's really important, again, to determine like what is insured when I'm buying this place and what coverage might I need to go to and find above and beyond what they're actually providing.
Go ahead.
Oh, there's so many things. There's so many things to consider around insurance, and a lot of people, insurance for many people it is dry, it's boring, and it's esoteric, and so they kind of gloss over it. And I mean, there's a lot of considerations here, and there's also some just simple facts that make sure it's in place. Understand the general coverages, it's not hard to just take that policy and go to an insurance agent your local insurance agent and say, hey, this is what I'm buying here. Can you tell me if there's any gaps? That's probably your best bet, because we're not experts in insurance. Jane and I are realtors. We just come across this all the time, and it's a consideration we need to advise our clients to get proper advice on. So we're talking about some of the things we notice, but this is not comprehensive by any means.
Right. So this is an interesting, another situation where for earthquake insurance, they have the deductible for each particular unit. So let's say you're buying B105, your deductible would be $28,000.
Right.
For earthquake.
And this usually varies because of size of unit, or what's called unit entitlement may vary. So every unit will have its own allocation as to what it kind of its proportion of ownership and responsibility for the common property and for the strata.
Yeah. So again, this is another one where the water, I always look at the water because it's an easy way for me to assess like apples to apples. So this one is another condo building, $25,000.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I agree. So what we do is we actually introduce the insurance agent to the buyer, and then we give them a copy of the current insurance documents, and we ask them to provide insurance so that, because we can't provide advice for this
Right.
sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, I mean, years ago I worked in insurance, and so I got to see from the other side. And again, I'm wearing my realtor hat now, and it's been years, so many things have probably changed. But a couple pieces of general advice I would say that I give my clients is, one is, if there's strata insurance on the property, or if you're buying a single family home and the sellers have a certain insurance from a certain company, go and get a quote from that same company. Whether you're looking for just additional insurance for the strata, or you're looking for your new insurance policy for when you buy the house, because insurance gets, you are responsible for the home at 12:01 a.m. on the completion date. So what happens if there's a fire at 11 p.m. the night before? It starts to do some damage, does damage over that time. You've got insurance straddling that, but you've got two insurance companies fighting over who's responsible for paying. Or there's some sort of damage there. It's just small, but it's a good idea to get a quote from the same company, and then there's nobody arguing. And especially too, if you're just doing some add-on insurance, if it's the same company with the add-on insurance, you don't have two companies arguing over who's responsible for this particular damage.
So
Or what?
we recommend that as well, and especially for strata, if you know who the strata is being insured by, that your particular unit be insured. I have had agents ask me who a house is being insured by, and they've tried to get insurance, but often because it's a new client, they will go back to square one. So it hasn't really helped with single family homes. But I want to say that this is something that often people forget, especially in older homes where there's oil tanks and rolling foundations and knob and tube wiring, that just assuming you're going to get insurance is not the case. And last
Yeah.
year, I remember there were fires, right?
Yeah.
And so some places in Souk, they weren't able to get insurance. So this is a big issue.
Some condo buildings have been refused insurance. We see those high deductibles going up, but some companies have actually decided not to even insure. There's only, I think, 4 major insurance companies. They may go under various names of subcategories and such, but I think, like, when you're looking at insurance in the big picture world of insurance, there's really, I think, if I recall, there were like only four big providers of insurance, and they've started getting away from a not liking strata in BC. So certain buildings, I think there's a couple in Vancouver that just couldn't get insurance, and that's a problem, obviously.
So this is a clause that we put in our contract. So subject to the buyer reviewing and approving the terms and rates of the strata corporation's insurance, including the premium amounts, deductible amounts, and coverage limits thereunder, and the date of expiration of such policy or policies, and the buyer confirming the buyer's ability to obtain personal strata owner insurance on terms satisfactory to the buyer, including coverage for any owner's portion of deductibles payable under the strata corporation's insurance in each case, blah blah blah, and that there has to be insurance in place.
Yeah, and this is geared around strata. Do you have one that you use for regular residential properties?
I don't for regular residential ones, because you're responsible for getting that. It doesn't matter what the seller has.
That's true. It is true, except I find that, and I don't have that clause, but it's something I do ask for, not necessarily a copy that there's insurance policy, but I want to know who they're with. But furthermore, and let's take a step back. So when we're talking residential homes, like, why do we even include an insurance clause in this if it's up to you to get it afterwards? But the thing is most people are financing their homes, and no lender is going to lend you money through a mortgage in hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars if there's not protection in place for that loan. So you need to have, it's going to be a fundamental term of your mortgage loan that you have insurance on the property. So they need to ensure that you can get insurance, that you're insurable. You may have had like a whole bunch of claims and the insurance companies have written you off, or the property may have a problem with getting insurance. There may be something about the property that makes it uninsurable. Even though somebody's had insurance in the past doesn't mean that when they do, as Jane alluded to, they will do a whole new investigation, a review of you and that property. They'll start a new file and treat it as if it's a fresh start. So if they find some information that's not to their liking, it could increase deductibles. It could mean that you have to go to special insurers, or you may not be able to get insurance. Most times you can, but that's the reason for that clause in there.
Right. And at the very least, for your mortgage, you're going to need fire insurance. They want you to have that. So so where people get caught out is when they write an unconditional offer and they don't schedule a visit between the subject removal or the offer and the completion date, which is possession, and they're unable to get the information. They're reliant on the seller to provide it. The seller doesn't have to provide it, but at the very minimum, you're going to need to know the type of wiring. So make sure it's not knob and tube or aluminum, or if it's aluminum, that it's pigtailed. They're going to need to know what the amperage is, the age of the hot water tank, and the type of plumbing that you have. So it could be poly B or PEX or copper.
Yeah, and also heating sources. They're going to be looking for, types of heating source that won't exist. I think you mentioned amperage of the panel. They're going to look for the, is there any wood heat like in the home?
Wood energy technology. Yeah.
Yeah. So fireplaces, all of that. So these are all things, and that's where the clause might come in handy to say, the seller will provide, or answer these various questions or so forth. It is helpful to have those questions answered. It doesn't usually create a hiccup, but it can cause problems if, you can't get access or you can't get answers. You need one or the other or both.
Right. And so I just want to say that when you write a contract, really you're writing something that you're trying to figure out what the end result is that you want. And so you have to be very careful from the beginning that you anticipate what potential problems you may have, what information you may need, so that you can get that information before completion.
Yeah. I had a client really upset and understandably so one time when, and this was on the buyer's agent. I was representing the seller, but the buyer's agent had made an offer and they had removed their conditions, or I don't remember if they made an unconditional offer to begin with, but at some point after conditions were fully removed and the place was contractually sold, they went through with an appraiser, and apparently the buyer came along too and was wandering through the house at the same time. And I got a call, and the place was vacant, but I got a call from the seller because the neighbor had noticed this, and it had been unknown to me, so it was all news. I had to call that agent and give him a real talking to. But
what for?
Give him what for? But the fact is that there was no right to access that home, and that agent should have included the right to access the home after it was unconditional for various purposes with proper notice and all of this. And this is a thing that you can anticipate. We know this is pretty much a common reason for access. And so why not include it in the contract so that you don't end up with these kind of problems? Because essentially those folks were trespassing at that point.
Right. So you can write that, you can have a template in your listing contract or in your purchase contract where the buyer will get access, or in some cases where the property is tenanted, that may be a problem. You may not be able to give them access. So just understand that it may not be something within the listing agent's control.
Two sides to this is like, it's managing expectations for your clients and letting them know, like forecasting what could be coming down the pipes, and also trying to include in the contract and anticipate in the contract anything that could be needed in future so that that's covered. And then it's up to the seller, of course, to accept that if you're the buyer's agent wearing that hat and putting those in. If for some reason the seller's not accepting of these, then you have to think about, well, why? Because these are reasonable asks. Why? And am I okay to forego this? because all these things are negotiable.
Right. Okay. Any other comments? Let me know, actually, people, if you want us to get an insurance agent on board, we can discuss it more in detail with them. Please comment below. And if you're watching the replay,
we don't know. So always good to have another.
Yeah. And if you're watching this on a replay, please put hashtag replay below. We are trying to keep these shorter and sweeter. So just want to say, don't forget to subscribe. We're here every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Andrew, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so feel free to reach out anytime. Call me 250-360-6106. Email me info@andrewplank.com, or come to my website where there's copies of this on my blog, as well as lots of various information about buying or selling homes. www.andrewplank.com.
Okay, and if you guys need to get in touch with me, I'm Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at RE/MAX Camosun. My number is 250-744-0775. You can reach me at briarhillgroup@gmail.com. And I have two websites, one with all these videos and other podcasts on neighborhoods at vancouverislandtime.com, as well as for listing and selling at briarhillgroup.com. All right, so next week is July 4th. We are going to be here and we're going to be doing a review of the market. So stay tuned every Monday morning, 10 a.m.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. And Jane, thank you so much. Have a great week. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.